Commander Hart stood at the observation window and looked out at the colony. The sun was setting over the green hills. The settlement had grown strong over the past 15 years. Thousands of humans lived and worked here, building something new on this distant world. Children played in the streets. Workers moved through the markets. Families sat together in homes they had constructed with their own hands. Hart was 45 years old. His face was weathered from years of military service. His eyes were sharp and his mind was sharp. He had seen conflict before. He had trained soldiers. He had made hard decisions, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to happen. The alarm sounded at 1847 hours. It was not a drill alarm. The sound meant danger, real danger. Dr. Cross, the colony administrator, appeared in the command center moments after the alarm. She was 52 years old. Her gray hair was pulled back tight. She had been a scientist before she became an administrator. She understood data and she understood people. "What is it?" she asked Hart. Hart was staring at the screens. Strange signals filled the sensor displays. The signals were coming from space, from multiple sources, from something large. "We have incoming vessels," Hart said. His voice was steady. "Multiple contacts, they are huge." Captain North rushed into the room. North was 38 years old. He was the tactical officer. He had studied combat strategy for his entire career. His hands moved across the console quickly, pulling up more information. 15 major signatures, North said. "They are decelerating fast. They will be in orbit in less than 2 hours." Looked at Hart. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed concern. "Do we know who they are?" she asked. "No," Hart said. "No identification matches anything in our database." The communication system suddenly came alive. A voice came through. It was not human. It was harsh and strange. The voice did not use words the same way humans did, but the translation system worked. The meaning was clear. "Human settlement," the voice said. "You are in space controlled by the HAL Empire. You have 2 options. Surrender all resources, all technology, and all population, or be destroyed completely. You have 1 hour to decide." Hart felt the weight of the moment. 1 hour. They had 1 hour to decide the fate of 8,000 people. Was very quiet. North was doing calculations on his console. Around them, other officers worked. The command center was filled with the sound of keyboards and quiet voices. "Our defenses," Hart said to North. "Can we engage them?" "Not effectively," North said. "Whatever these ships are, they are advanced, very advanced. Our weapons are good for defense against other humans or against basic threats. These vessels are something else entirely. They have weapons systems we do not fully understand." Hart nodded slowly. He was not surprised. The universe was vast. Humans had left Earth and colonized this world. But there were others out there. Older civilizations, more advanced civilizations. Put her hand on Hart's shoulder. "What are you thinking?" she asked. Hart turned away from the window. His jaw was tight. His hands were clenched. "I am thinking that we are human," he said. "I am thinking that humans come from a world that tries to kill us every day. Earth is hard. The weather is violent. The land is harsh. Diseases exist. Predators exist. We evolved on it. We learned to survive when survival seemed impossible." North looked up from his console. "You want to fight," North said. It was not a question. "I want to consider all options," Hart said. "But yes, I want to fight." Closed her eyes for a moment. "These creatures said they will destroy us if we resist," she said. "Yes," Hart said, "but they also said they want our resources and our population. They did not say they want us dead. They want to conquer us. That means they believe we will surrender. That means they are counting on fear." Hart moved to the main console. He looked at the incoming signals. The alien ships were powerful. The data showed they had weapons 10 times more advanced than human weapons. The armor was thick. The shields were strong. By every reasonable calculation, humans could not win against these creatures. But Hart was thinking about something else. He was thinking about the fact that humans were the first species to walk on Earth's moon. They did this without the technology these aliens possessed. They did this with limited resources and limited knowledge. They did this because they refused to accept that it was impossible. "Get all senior staff to the war room," Hart said. "Now, I want military, engineering, science, and civilian leadership. We have 45 minutes to make a plan." Did not argue. She simply nodded and began making calls. Within minutes, they were assembled. Engineer Daniel Foster was there. He had spent 20 years maintaining colony systems. He understood every machine, every power line, every piece of equipment. Lieutenant Price was there. She was young but capable. She had trained soldiers for 5 years. Maya Summers was there too. She was a teacher. She worked with the children of the colony. Hart explained the situation. He did not hide the truth. These aliens were more advanced. They had more firepower. By conventional military standards, resistance was foolish. But, Hart said, "I do not care about conventional standards. I care about survival. And I know what humans can do when survival is at stake." Daniel Foster leaned forward. "What do you want us to do?" he asked. "I want you to make them regret coming here," Hart said. "I want you to use every system in this colony, every power source, every piece of equipment. I want you to create defenses they are not expecting." Price nodded. "I will organize the soldiers," she said. "We will defend the perimeter. We will make them fight for every meter." Maya Summers spoke quietly. "The children," she said. "There are 3,000 children in this colony. I will protect them. I will prepare shelters." Closed her eyes again. This was hard. This was the hardest decision. They would fight. They would probably lose. Many would die. But Hart was right about one thing. They were human, and humans had survived worse. Humans had always survived worse. The alien ships entered orbit at 1942 hours. They sent another message. The deadline was final. Hart sent one message back. The message was short. "We do not surrender. We will defend this colony. Come and take it if you can." In the darkness above, the alien commander received the message. He was surprised. This was not the response he expected. Humans should be terrified. Humans should be begging for mercy. Instead, humans had chosen war. What the alien commander did not understand was that humans had always been this way. They fought. They struggled. They refused to accept defeat even when defeat seemed certain. And on this night, on this distant world, humans would prove again why they were the species that had survived everything their own planet could throw at them. The colony had 48 hours. Hart had made the declaration. They would fight. Now everyone had to work. Daniel Foster moved through the engineering section like a general directing an army. He had 300 engineers and technicians under his command. The mining equipment was heavy and powerful. The colony had machines designed to cut through rock and move earth. These machines had never been built for war, but Foster was not going to let that stop him. "Take the excavators," he said to his team. "Position them along the northern perimeter. We will use them as moving shields. Get the reactor backup systems online. We need maximum power output." The engineers moved quickly. There was no time for doubt. There was no time for questions. Foster understood that they were building defenses against something they barely understood, but he also understood something else. Every day humans survived was another day they had a chance. Foster was 48 years old. He had come to this colony as a young engineer. He had watched children grow up here. He had built homes and systems and infrastructure. This was his home. These were his people. In the military section, Price was organizing soldiers. The colony had 200 active military personnel. That was all. 200 soldiers against an invasion force that might number in the thousands. The numbers were bad, very bad. But Price was not thinking about the numbers. She was thinking about positioning. She was thinking about terrain. She was thinking about everything humans had learned from 10,000 years of warfare. Position teams here, here, and here, she said, pointing to a map. These are the high ground positions. From these locations, we can see approaching forces. We can see what is coming. The aliens will come from the landing zones. They will try to move toward the colony center. We will make them fight for every street. The soldiers were young. Many of them had never seen real combat, but they were human soldiers. They had been trained. They understood discipline. They understood tactics. Price had seen them train for years. She knew they would fight hard. In the civilian sections, Maya Summers was doing her own work. She was organizing shelter spaces. The colony had an underground area used for storage. It could be converted into protected spaces. It was not perfect, but it was better than nothing. 3,000 children lived in the colony, children between the ages of newborn and 18. Maya had to think about them. She had to protect them. She had to make them feel safe even though she herself was terrified. She gathered the older children together, the ones who were 16 and 17 years old. "Listen to me," she said. "We are going to have a battle here. Some of you will want to fight. Some of you are old enough to help the soldiers. I will not stop you, but I need some of you to help me. I need you to help me protect the younger children. I need you to be strong. I need you to show them that humans do not break. Do you understand?" The teenagers understood. They were scared, but they understood. Several of them volunteered to help in the shelters. Cross was in the administrative center. She was doing something different. She was communicating with other human colonies. She was sending messages across space, telling them what was happening. If this colony fell, others would know. Others would prepare. Others would remember. She also worked with Hart to organize supplies. Food, water, medical supplies. If the battle lasted long, they would need everything. If the aliens cut off supplies, they would need to survive on what they had. Hart moved between all these groups. He watched Foster's engineers work. He watched Price organize soldiers. He watched Maya prepare shelters. He watched manage supplies and communication. Finally, Hart called a full colony gathering. Everyone came. 8,000 humans stood in the main plaza. They came from many nations. They came from different backgrounds, but they were all humans. They were all colonists. They were all facing the same choice. Hart stood on a raised platform. He was not a man who gave speeches. He was a soldier. He was a leader, but now he had to speak. "I will tell you the truth," Hart said. His voice was loud and clear. "The aliens that are coming are stronger than us. They have better weapons. They have more soldiers. If we fight, many of us will die. Some of us will not see tomorrow." The crowd was silent, very silent. "But I will also tell you something else," Hart continued. "Humans come from a world that is hard, a world that is cruel, a world that tries to kill us with weather and disease and predators. But we did not surrender to Earth. We survived it. We conquered it. We left it. We came here and built something beautiful." Hart pointed to the buildings. He pointed to the green areas where children played. He pointed to the farms where humans had grown food from foreign soil. "This is ours," Hart said. "We built this, and I will not surrender it to creatures who think we are weak. I will not let my people be conquered without a fight." He paused. He looked at the faces around him. He saw fear. He saw anger. He saw determination. "But this is your choice," Hart said. "If you want to surrender, I will not stop you. If you want to try to escape, I will help you. I will not force anyone to fight. This is a choice you must make for yourself, a choice you must make for your family, a choice you must make in your heart." An old man stepped forward. His name was George. He was 73 years old. He had lived most of his life. He had a wife. He had. "I will fight," George said simply. His voice was not strong, but it was certain. "I have lived long. I have had a good life. I deserve a future. I will fight so they have that future." Other people stepped forward. Young people, old people, families together, parents willing to fight for their children. One woman, Sarah, stepped forward with her teenage son. "We will fight," she said. "My son will fight. I will do whatever is needed." More and more humans stepped forward. They came from all parts of the colony. They came with fear and with courage mixed together. Foster saw this and he worked harder. He built better defenses. He pushed his engineers to create things he was not sure were possible. But these people believed. These people would fight. So Foster would give them every advantage he could. Price saw this and she trained harder. She drilled the soldiers. She prepared every position. She made plans and then made plans for when the plans failed. Maya saw this and she gathered the children. She told them stories about humans who did impossible things, stories about humans who refused to give up. Saw this and she smiled. This was what she had hoped for. This was what humans could do when they chose to stand together. The 48 hours passed quickly. The alien ships moved into attack positions. The moment was coming. And the humans of the colony stood ready. The first explosion came at 600 hours. It shook the entire colony. The ground moved, buildings swayed, dust rose into the air. The alien ships had begun their bombardment from orbit. They fired weapons that humans had no names for. The weapons were not like missiles. They were like concentrated energy. They burned. They destroyed. They left craters where buildings had been. Hart was in the command center with North. They watched the displays. The alien weapons hit the outer defense perimeter. The shields that Foster had created with improvised materials took the impacts. Some shields held, some broke, but they slowed the bombardment. They reduced the damage. "All units report," Hart commanded. The voices came back. Military teams were in position. Civilians were in shelters. Engineers were standing by to repair critical systems. The soldiers were waiting. They were terrified, but they were ready. The bombardment lasted for 30 minutes. 30 minutes of explosions. 30 minutes of destruction. When it finally stopped, the colony was wounded but still standing. Then the landing craft came. They were massive. They moved down through the atmosphere like falling mountains. Their hulls were dark metal. Their weapons pointed downward. They landed in the open areas near the colony perimeter. The doors opened. The hell came out. They were not human-shaped. They had 4 arms. Their skin was hard like armor. Their eyes were large and black. They were almost 3 meters tall. When they moved with a strange grace that humans found disturbing. There were hundreds of them. They moved forward in perfect formation. They expected the humans to panic. They expected humans to run. They expected humans to try to hide. This was what happened with every other species they fought. But the humans did not run. Price was in the northern position. She had 30 soldiers with her. She watched the HAL approach. Her hands were shaking. She was afraid, but she did not show the fear. "Hold position," she said into the communication system. "Wait for my signal. Wait until they are in range." The aliens came closer. They came closer and closer. They did not see the soldiers in the fortified positions. They did not see the humans waiting. "Now," Price said. The soldiers opened fire. The human weapons were not as advanced as the alien weapons. But at this range, with the HAL standing in the open, the human weapons were very effective. Alien soldiers fell. Their armor was strong, but human bullets could penetrate it. The HAL commander did not understand what was happening. Why were the humans fighting? Why were they not surrendering? The HAL began to spread out. They took cover. They returned fire. The energy weapons created explosions. Buildings burned. But the humans were not standing in the open. They were protected by fortifications. For the first time in a long time, the HAL were not winning easily. Captain North was coordinating the defense from the command center. He sent reinforcements to the areas under the heaviest attack. He moved soldiers to create crossfire zones where the HAL would be hit from multiple directions. Every tactic North used came from human military history. Thousands of years of warfare had taught humans how to fight, how to use terrain, how to create superior positions, how to defeat larger forces. The HAL did not have this history. They had conquered through overwhelming power. They had never needed subtle tactics. A young soldier named Christopher was in the western position. He was only 19 years old. This was his first real combat. He was terrified. His heart was beating so fast he thought it would explode out of his chest. But he was human, and humans did not surrender. Christopher looked at the alien soldiers approaching his position. There were so many of them. They were so big. They looked so strong. Everything in his mind was screaming at him to run. But he did not run. He thought of his family back on Earth. He thought of humans standing against impossible odds throughout history. He thought of humans who had built cities and crossed oceans and reached for the stars. He fired his weapon. It was not a decisive shot. It was not a perfect shot. But it was a human defending his home, and it mattered. Around the colony, the same thing was happening. Humans were fighting. They were afraid. Many of them were wounded. Some were dying. But they were not surrendering. The HAL commander was confused. He tried to push through the human positions by brute force. He sent more soldiers. He attacked from different angles, but humans adapted. Humans changed their tactics. Humans found the weakness in each alien attack and exploited it. An alien soldier deployed a heavy weapon. It was designed to destroy fortifications. It fired at the western position where Christopher was fighting. The explosion was huge. The building collapsed. But Christopher was not in the building. He had moved. It was a small thing, a simple thing, but it was the difference between death and survival. The HAL did not understand this kind of tactical thinking. They did not understand this kind of flexibility. They thought in terms of overwhelming force. Humans thought in terms of adaptation. As the hours passed, something changed. The alien soldiers began to move more cautiously. They were still strong. They were still advanced, but they were becoming uncertain. They had never experienced uncertainty before. The humans fought harder. They were losing people. They were suffering casualties, but with each hour they got stronger. With each hour they learned more about the aliens. They learned how they moved. They learned how they thought. They learned their weaknesses. Price was still in her position. She had been fighting for 6 hours. Most of her original team had been reinforced or rotated back to rest. She was exhausted. Her shoulders ached from firing her weapon, but she was still standing. She looked at the alien formation. It was spreading out more. It was becoming less organized. The humans were making them work harder than they had ever worked. Foster was in the engineering center. He was watching the power systems. Some of the defenses he had created were being destroyed by alien weapons. He was already designing replacements. He was thinking of new ideas. His mind was working on problems and solutions constantly. Was in the shelter with Maya and the children. She could feel the explosions from the bombardment above. She could hear the sounds of battle through the communication systems. But she was calm. She had to be calm. She had to show the children that adults could face danger and not break. Maya was telling the children a story. She was telling them about a time long ago when a group of humans had faced a much larger army. The humans had won because they were clever, because they were brave, because they refused to give up. Above them, the battle raged on. The HAL commander was making plans. He was still confident he would win, but he was beginning to understand that this would not be easy. This would not be a simple conquest. For the first time, he wondered if the humans might actually be dangerous. Hart was in the command center. It was now 1400 hours, 8 hours of continuous battle. The colony was holding, but it was being pushed back slowly. The aliens were learning. They were adapting their tactics. They were pushing the human lines toward the center of the settlement. North looked at Hart. "We need something now," North said. "The aliens are adjusting. If we do not change the situation soon, they will overwhelm us through sheer attrition." Hart nodded. He had been waiting for this moment. He had spoken with Foster about a plan that was dangerous, a plan that would either save them or destroy them. Hart opened the communication channel to Foster. "Execute Protocol 7, Hart said. Foster had been waiting for this command. He immediately went to work. Deep in the colony systems, Foster initiated a sequence that he had spent the last 48 hours preparing. The colony's main fusion reactor powered everything. The reactor had safety systems designed to prevent it from overloading. Foster was about to override those safety systems. It was incredibly dangerous. If he miscalculated by even a small amount, the reactor would explode. It would destroy the colony. It would kill everyone. But Foster had studied the specifications carefully. He had run calculations. He believed he could control this. He believed he could channel the power surge in a way that would harm the aliens but not destroy the humans. He believed that was all he had. Foster's hands moved through the sequence, one command after another, disabling this safety, overriding that protocol, pushing the reactor toward an overload that would burn bright but burn quickly. The reactor began to overheat. Temperatures climbed. Pressure built up in the containment systems. 30 seconds, Foster said into the communication system. North heard this. He understood what was about to happen. The colony's power systems would fail. The advanced technology would be disrupted. The colony would plunge into darkness. But the aliens relied on their advanced technology, their scanning systems, their targeting systems, their weapon systems. All of it would fail. "All personnel prepare for power loss," North commanded. "Backup systems online. Soldier teams switch to manual targeting. Everyone prepare now." The soldiers had trained for this. They had practiced fighting without electronic support. Many of them had brought old weapons, basic weapons, weapons that did not require computer systems. 10 seconds, Foster said. Hart gripped the edge of the console. This was the moment. Everything depended on the next few seconds. The reactor overloaded. The power surge exploded through the colony's systems. Every electronic device, every advanced system, every computer glowed bright and then went dark. The colony became dark, completely dark. The battle was happening in darkness. For the first time, the HAL commander felt fear. His weapons systems were offline. His targeting systems were offline. His advanced sensors could not see. His communication systems did not work. The human soldiers, however, were ready. They switched on lights, manual lights, old lights. They could see, they could aim, they could shoot. The aliens in the darkness, with their systems dead, became targets. What happened next was not a battle in the traditional sense. It was chaos. But it was chaos that humans understood. Humans had fought in darkness for thousands of years. Humans had hunted in darkness. Humans had survived in darkness. The HAL had never experienced anything like this. Price moved through the darkness. She did not need to see the aliens to know where they were. She could hear them. She could sense them. She moved her soldiers to positions where they could engage the confused aliens. "Hold your fire until you have a target," Price commanded. "Make every shot count. They cannot see us. We have the advantage." The soldiers of the colony began to fight with a ferocity the aliens had not expected. The aliens were trying to fight blind. The humans were fighting with purpose. The humans were fighting with knowledge of their own terrain. Christopher was still in his position. When the lights went out, he thought the end had come. But then Price gave the order. Then lights came on. Manual lights that showed the aliens clearly to the humans but meant nothing to the HAL. Christopher saw an alien soldier stumbling in the darkness. He had a clear shot. He took it. The alien fell. Around the colony, the same thing was happening. The humans were not overwhelmed by alien numbers anymore. The humans had the advantage. Foster was watching the power levels carefully. He had told Hart the overload would last about 30 minutes. 30 minutes where the aliens would be blind. 30 minutes where human soldiers would fight with advantage. But it was not 30 minutes. It was only 15 minutes before the HAL commander realized what was happening. He had backup power systems, ancient systems that did not rely on the advanced technology. He activated them. The aliens' lights came back on. Their weapons systems came back online. Their sensors started working again. But it was 15 minutes. 15 minutes where the HAL had suffered heavy losses. 15 minutes where humans had proven something important. The alien commander was now considering his options. He was still more powerful than the humans, but the humans had shown they were capable. The humans had shown they were willing to fight. The humans had shown they could adapt and overcome. Was still in the shelter. She felt the power surge. She felt the explosions. She heard the sounds of fighting, but she kept telling stories to the children. She kept telling them that humans would survive. She kept telling them that this was what humans did. Maya was beside her. Maya was also afraid, but she smiled. She smiled at the children. She let them see that an adult could be afraid and still be brave. Hart was back in the command center. The emergency lights were on. The systems were coming back online slowly. North was assessing the damage. Casualties? Hart asked. Heavy, North said. We lost 30 soldiers. The aliens lost more than 100. Hart nodded. 100 alien soldiers dead. 30 humans dead. These humans had just proven something that no one in the galaxy had known before. Humans could fight. Humans could adapt. Humans could overcome. Foster came through the communication system. The reactor is stable, he said. We are holding, but I cannot do that again. The reactor will not survive another overload. Hart understood. They had used their one major advantage. Now they would have to fight with what remained. But as Hart looked at the displays, he saw something. The alien soldiers were moving differently. They were not advancing with the same confidence. They were being more careful. They were afraid. For the first time in the battle, Hart believed they might actually win. The battle continued for hours after the power surge, but something fundamental had changed. The humans were no longer fighting as if they were doomed. They were fighting as if they might win. The alien soldiers began a tactical retreat. They moved back toward the landing zones. The humans pushed forward, controlling the battle rhythm now instead of just reacting to it. By 1800 hours, the aliens had consolidated their forces around the main landing area. They were preparing for something. Hart could see it on the displays. A major push. A final assault to break the human resistance. The HAL commander had made a decision. He would land his elite personal guard. He would lead them himself. He was ancient. He had lived longer than a human could imagine. He had conquered worlds. He had defeated species far more advanced than humans. This small human colony would not defeat him. He descended with 500 of his best warriors. Hart saw this on the screens. He understood what it meant. The aliens were committing everything. They were making a final push. All units to the colony center, Hart commanded. They are coming here. We consolidate. We make our stand in the colony center. North was already making the calculations. The plan was simple but effective. The colony center was surrounded by buildings. The streets were narrow. The aliens could not use their numbers effectively in close terrain. Price moved her soldiers. She organized them into teams. Each team had a position. Each team had a fallback position. She had learned from 6 hours of fighting. She understood the HAL now. The aliens advanced through the colony streets. The commander was with them. He was larger than other HAL. His armor was different. His weapons were more advanced. The humans waited. The aliens came around a corner and met human fire. The narrow streets meant nothing to the elite guard. They were trained for this. They moved with purpose. They advanced despite the human fire. But Hart had prepared something special. As the aliens advanced, they were moving into a prepared zone. Foster had worked with the colony engineers to create a specific design. The buildings on both sides of the street had been prepared. Windows had been cut into positions that humans had prepared. When the alien commander and his guard entered the kill zone, fire came from every direction. It was not overwhelming firepower, but it was coordinated, it was disciplined, it was human warfare at its finest. The HAL commander realized he was in danger, real danger. This was not possible. He was elite, he was ancient, he was superior. But humans were doing something the galaxy had never seen before. Humans were holding. The commander made a decision that would haunt him forever. He decided to engage directly. He would defeat the humans through personal combat. He would show them the error of their resistance. He emerged into the main square where Hart stood with North and a small contingent of soldiers. The HAL commander was enormous. His weapons were advanced. His armor was superior. By every measurement of physical combat, he was far superior to the human before him. But Hart was not afraid. He had been a soldier for 25 years. He had trained for combat his entire life. He looked at this alien and he saw only another opponent. The commander attacked. The fight was brief but intense. Hart could not match the alien's strength, but Hart could match his speed. Hart could think faster. Hart could adapt. Every time the commander struck, Hart moved. Every time the commander tried to use his strength, Hart used his position to neutralize the advantage. The other soldiers watched. They watched their commander fight a creature 5 times his strength, and they watched as Hart held his own. It was symbolic. It was everything the colony represented: strength versus determination, technology versus will, power versus human spirit. The commander was a fighter, a true fighter. He recognized quality in his opponent. He began to respect this human, but respect did not change the outcome. Hart saw his moment. He moved inside the commander's defenses. He struck at the weak point in the alien armor. It was a small opening, but Hart had seen it during hours of watching Hal fight. The commander fell. He did not die, but he was defeated. He was wounded. He understood that this human had beaten him through skill and courage. The other HAL soldiers saw their commander fall, the ancient one who had never been defeated, the great warrior who had led them through 100 worlds. He had been beaten by a human. For the first time in their entire history, the HAL began to lose faith. They were powerful. They had weapons. They had numbers. But humans had something else. Humans had something that could not be measured in weapons or armor. Humans had the will to not surrender. The HAL commander called for a retreat. It was an order that had never been given in HAL military history, but it was given now. The elite guard that had come to destroy the humans began to fall back toward the landing zones. The human soldiers advanced. They did not kill every alien, but they drove them back. They forced them to flee. By 2000 hours, the HAL were leaving the colony. They were moving toward the landing zones. They were preparing to lift off. Hart stood in the center square. He was wounded. He was exhausted, but he was alive. The humans had won. North came to stand beside him. "They are leaving," North said. Hart simply nodded. Foster came from the engineering center. His face was covered with dust and sweat. "We held the reactor," Foster said. "The colony is damaged, but it is still here." Price appeared with Maya, and Price was covered in blood and dirt. Maya had tears on her face, was smiling. In the shelters, the children began to emerge. They came up from the underground. They came into the light. They saw humans who had fought, humans who had bled, humans who had refused to surrender. Maya knelt down and looked at the children. "Do you know what you have just seen?" she asked them. The children shook their heads. "You have seen humans do something amazing," Maya said. "You have seen humans stand against impossible odds. You have seen humans refuse to give up. You have seen humans survive." One child asked, "Will they come back?" Maya thought about this. She looked at Hart. Hart was looking at the sky. The alien ships were leaving orbit. They were jumping into faster-than-light space. They were going home. "No," Maya said. "I do not think they will come back, and if they do, we will be ready." Hart addressed the colony as the sun set. The sky was orange and red. The colony was wounded and tired. "We have survived something that many species would not have survived," Hart said. "We did not survive because we were strong. We did not survive because we had better weapons. We survived because we are human, because humans do not surrender, because humans stand together." He paused and looked at all the faces around him. The soldiers, the engineers, the teachers, the families. "The galaxy will hear about what happened here," Hart continued. "They will hear that humans fought. They will hear that humans won. They will hear that we are not a species to be conquered." As night fell on the colony, humans began to repair what had been damaged. They began to care for the wounded. They began to rebuild. Somewhere in space, the HAL commander stood in his ship. He looked back at the human colony. He looked at the world that had defeated him. He would remember. The galaxy would learn. Humans were not weak. Humans were not easy to conquer. Humans had arrived on the galactic stage as something unexpected, something powerful, something that refused to break. And that memory would change everything. In the shelter, Maya told the children another story. The story of the day the aliens came and the day the humans stood unbroken. The colony had been tested. The colony had survived. And humanity had proven itself to the stars.